proposal, sorry.
Not right here. You bust up and do it.
I know. Do we need to vote on whether or not to approve? Because the way I wrote that.
Your name Kiki?
Approval by city council. to move forward with the-
Man, Kiki. I get it, Kiki. Kiki.
What feels like, to me, that felt like we need
They like, they so hood.
them to go ahead.
I love it.
Does that make sense? Not just letting us know.
I like Kiki better, so. I like Kiki.
So they feel,
How much?
administration feels they don't need.
Nah, you Kiki.
Okay, I'm okay with that.
That's sad. That is sad, kid.
Will that be an item?
My computer is slow.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
Cool, man. I ain't on yet. My computer acting stupid. That was iMac. Damn. Oh no, I bought this one. They give us those. Yeah.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our Tuesday, April the 27th agenda session. I now call this meeting to order. Could I get a motion on the please?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve. If there are no objections, the minutes will stand as read. I'm getting a little bit of feedback. Okay, I'm not seeing them mute. Oh, you are now. Okay. All right. Under ordinances, first reading, I believe, Councilman Ledford, didn't we go over all of these? Or haven't we been over all these planning items? Well, actually, there's just one in there.
So, if I may, Chairman.
Yes.
I will defer, actually. We did go over this in planning and zoning. We have a deferral on this case, and I will not speak for Councilman Hester. I'll let him add his remarks
Sure.
on this particular case.
Councilman Hester, any questions, comments on this?
No question, no comment. I'm ready to approve it.
Okay, all right, very well. Moving down to resolutions under economic and community development. Madam Clerk, would you read 7A, please?
A resolution authorizing the mayor to retroactively enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Chattanooga Community Kitchen and pay for COVID-19 related shelter expenses from April 2020 in the amount of $38,445.26, which is reimbursable through the Federal Agency Management Agency.
Any questions or comments regarding this item? All right, 7B, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Economic and Community Development to apply for and if awarded, accept emergency solution grant funds from the Tennessee Housing Development Agency for approximately $161,250.
All right, any questions? Under finance, C, please.
A resolution authorizing the acceptance of Federal Emergency Management Agency funds administered by the United States Department of Homeland Security, declared on April 2, 2020 to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic, DR 4514TN.
Councilwoman Burrs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is Daisy, can we bring Daisy up?
I'm actually not seeing Daisy. Hey, Chief. You know where Miss Madison might be?
I saw Daisy in the conference room when I walked by, so.
Have you got any information on this particular item, or do we need to, could you get Daisy on the call for us?
Yeah.
And then.
So, Chief, what I've had is a number of questions about related to COVID funding. And I was going to deal with it next week during budget and finance, but apparently this is on the agenda for today. So maybe we need her here to answer some of those questions.
We'll get her in here.
Thank you.
Is there any objection? Would there be any objections to deferring this week so that we can hear this particular item in Budget and Finance Committee next week?
I mean, I don't know. Let me ask Daisy. if
Okay.
That creates an issue.
All right.
Because
Okay.
we do need to be able to accept the funds from FEMA. So let me get her in here.
Okay. If you will, and Councilwoman Burrs, we can come back to
Yeah,
that item.
no problem.
Thank you.
All right. D, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to amend the annual end date of May 14, 2021 to match the software year end date of September 30, 2021 of an agreement with Club Profit Systems to provide city golf courses with POS and reservation software.
Any questions or comments? E, please.
A resolution authorizing payment to Tennessee American Water Company through June 30, 2021 for disconnection fees resulting from delinquent sewer charges for a total amount not to exceed $75,000.
All right. I'm seeing no hands. Council, if you would pull up your purchase items for this afternoon. Any questions concerning our purchase items this afternoon? Councilman Ledford, I know you had a question that you had emailed the staff. Did you get your questions answered?
Yes, sir. I appreciate you remembering that and following up that email. Bill Payne and I had a conversation earlier today. I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah. I had a comment about another piece of this when you're ready.
Yes, about one of the purchase items?
Well, actually, the purchase document that came to us today.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, if you don't mind. This is for Phil. Phil, we kind of touched on this a few moments ago, but so with the action taken by this body to put us in line with T.C.A. on purchasing with the use of competitive proposals versus competitive bid, we now have a tab added to our purchasing sheet, which allows us to make or be aware of an item that needs to go to proposal. So my question to the city attorney is for this week on this tab, do we need to take any action? And in the future, I can see Vice Chairman Smith has he's ready to pounce on that question. So I'm gonna pause there.
Let me bring, I can bring Mr. Sammons in if you'd like, for an explanation.
Very good. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, would you bring in Tony Sammons, please? Good afternoon, Mr. Sammons.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of council. Thank you, Councilman Ledford, for bringing this to the attention of council. We are implementing to move forward with reporting to council our RFP recommendations. The list that you have is really our soft launch, meaning there are 10 items that are on that tab. 9 of the 10 of those are actually RFP items that are already in progress. There is only one of the 10 items, which is the very last item that's listed, that would require council's action this evening for approval.
Very good. Tony, do you feel moving forward, I know we had systems that we were going to put in place with being in line with T.C.A. on the use of competitive proposals. Will that, and this might go to Phil, are we going to need to have a second action taken when we see those proposals to approve it? Because the way we wrote the law was council approval, if I remember the language specifically.
And the provisions of the ordinance would control. I actually have council approve.
Okay, but we're good tonight except for that last item, Anthony?
Yes, we only have the one item that will require council's approval to move forward.
All right, thank you. And I did read each item, so I appreciate you putting that in the packet.
No problem.
All right, thank you. All right, council, if you would pull out your next week's agenda, May the 4th. Let me know if you have any questions or concerns about any item that may appear on the May 4th. Councilwoman Burrs.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. I noticed that on the committee meetings for next week, budget and finance hasn't been added yet.
Madam Clerk, can you make sure that we have that added? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
If you would now look at future considerations. It's my understanding that everything will migrate onto the 2-week agenda. So if there's anything on the future considerations you need more information about before it works its way onto the 2-week agenda, let me know at this time. Councilman Ledford.
Mr. Chairman, on the future considerations, the Summit of Softball, the contract ending in 2/16, you might ask why we're seeing that again, as we thought we had put the summit to bed in a previous meeting. This contract will be rebid due to an issue that arose with pricing and a price increase. So this talked to
Okay.
Mr. Payne about it, and it will have to go back out to bid.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Councilwoman Hill.
Thank you, Chairman. Under Economic and Community Development, I'd like some additional information about the Open Spaces Partnership.
Okay.
I hear that Travis is here. He's in the white coat. He can tell me about this.
Is that something that we can, as Travis comes, well,
anyways.
well, we're going to have that in just a few minutes in legislative committee.
Okay, so that is the same thing that's in
Well, I
legislative?
think it's part of it, correct? No?
That's,
PACE program? No, I think what we were discussing in the legislative was the map.
Parks, it's different.
Okay, all right,
yeah,
come
so
on.
this is just a $50,000 authorization. I can't tell if it's a software program or what this is.
No, so the Open Spaces PACE program was a grant program that we created, I think 3 years ago now, that just allows for event producers to apply to the program. There are some certain requirements, like that it needs to be free and open to the public. And they go through an application process that helps them waive the park fee. And so this is just the authorization for city council to put set aside funds that would go for those event programs.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
You good? Councilwoman Coonrod.
Thank you, Chair. The Brownfields Revolving Loan Fund, if I'm not mistaken, like we approved the Patton Towers to fall up under the Brownfields. And I know so much has happened with Patton Towers just recently. But can we get an update like on the various projects that was identified the past 4 years, where we are with those projects, how we're moving forward? And then also how will, so if it is in true fact that the Patton Towers was under this Brownfields thing, what's the next steps like with that?
Okay. Hey, Chief. Could you have Mr. Salmons put together something for Councilwoman Coonrod, or for all of us? Actually, if he could put it together and email it out to all of us, then if we have more questions, or we can address them next week during our agenda session.
Yeah, can I ask, what would you like him to put in there specifically?
Councilwoman Coonrod?
Oh, thank you. Just thank you, Brent. Oh, it's so nice to have, someone to come to the podium without rushing down angrily. I appreciate the smile. But I do. And I meant that with all good intentions. But I would just like to know, like, the projects that was identified when we did hire a brownfields coordinator.
Mhm.
Like, what projects did they identify? In which area? Like, I specifically want to know for my district. I'm not sure if anybody else is interested in that, where we are in those projects, the stages of it. And then, if we had award patent towers, if they were under the Brownsfield, the pilot, or was it both together, and where we are with them, with the patent towers.
Okay,
Thank you.
we will get something to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Councilwoman, Councilwoman Coonrod, you good with that? Councilwoman Hill, another follow-up?
Yes, related to the MLK Underpass Artwork Activation Project, I'd appreciate it if somebody could email me the information about that program or the project itself, so I could study that.
Okay. Thank you. Any other future considerations that we need to look at? All right, Councilwoman Burris, I see Miss Madison is in the building with us. Miss Madison, do you mind to come up to the podium? Councilwoman Burris had some questions regarding the FEMA money that we were looking at accepting. Councilwoman Burris.
No, this is FEMA money that's related to COVID.
I'm sorry.
This is COVID.
That's
this
what
is
I thought.
COVID related.
Okay. So
Items.
council, I'm still getting questions from council about anything that's COVID related. And the question is, what have we spent on that we've called COVID related? Because it came from general fund or it came from somewhere, we spent it.
Mhm.
And then how have the reimbursements been applied so that we're made whole in a flat budget year?
Okay.
And you don't have to answer now. We can't seem to get an answer. We're asked to spend or approve, and you and I have had this conversation. We're asked to approve spending funds, and yet we've never been given, and I believe it started with Councilman Henderson back in January, and then Councilman Ledford has asked questions, and I just don't have those answers. So it's a very simple, straightforward, what have we spent that was related to COVID? And nobody begrudges those expenditures at all. And as we've gotten funds back in, surely they've been applied to where we were in the hole before we start spending them on other things. And the only way I know how to say it is to make us whole before we approve spending other funds. Is there some way we can get a report on that?
Yes. In fact, we have various COVID-related grants that have been awarded, and we track those expenditures by those grants. There were others, of course, that did not have a specifically designated grant. We track those as well. So we will put together something.
Yeah, if we could have that, because the question I've gotten is just recently we were asked to approve some COVID expenditures, which again, nobody is begrudging. We need to know first that what we've already spent has been made whole by the COVID funds. I realized we had to spend them first, but I, as budget chair, still haven't even gotten a report of what have we spent, which had to come out of a flat budget, which would have put us in the hole. And has it all been reimbursed to make us whole again so that we can then approve in good conscience spending it on new things?
Okay, we'll get your status of all of the COVID expenditures and the funding sources.
Okay.
All of the funding sources will not have been reimbursed, but if the contract is approved, once we submit for reimbursements, if they're eligible, then they will be reimbursed. But we track those separately and we'll get a report.
Okay. Council has approved because it's been needed, and particularly emergency things. So that's not the issue.
Okay.
It's a balanced budget. And I know that at the end of the year, it has to be a balanced budget. I get all that budget stuff. It's that I'm not able to answer, nor is council, what all has been spent. And before we spend another dime, have we been made whole? And has the money been applied to what's been spent? And then we can in good conscience look forward to spending more once we've been made whole. That I would really appreciate that.
We'll get your status.
Okay, thanks so much.
Hold on one second. Chief, did you have a follow-up to that, or, because I do have some more questions?
Yeah, just briefly, I wanted to mention that especially with FEMA dollars, those reimbursements are several months after the fact,
Sure.
after we spend the money. So we can provide a report of COVID-related expenditures and then also what's been reimbursed and what we expect to be reimbursed. But I would ask the council not to defer this particular resolution tonight so that we can start the process of accepting funds.
I intend to make the motion to approve.
Thank
It's
you.
just that, yeah, that's not the problem. It's just, it seemed like the right time to say, if we could have that report. Thank you. And I think my colleagues may have other questions.
Councilwoman Coonrod?
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Daisy, you mentioned that when it comes to the agreement or the contract, it says that it's approved. So then we're gonna be, so we assume that we're gonna be reimbursed for the funding for the COVID. Is it that same exact way for the FEMA funds for the tornado that happened? Is that same way?
It is, because as you know, with the tornado, the federal government, except in some rare cases, do not give you the monies up front. Your expenditures are reimbursed. So once they declare the disaster, then we essentially incur the expenditures that are related to that exact disaster in anticipation of a reimbursement. We track them in a manner that would allow us to apply for and get reimbursement. But as Brent said, he says a couple of months, sometimes they have been years later. So, but what we do is track the cost so that we know and we segregate it from our other operating dollars.
Yeah, so you know where I'm going with this, right?
I'm sorry?
You know where I'm going with this. You know, I got to bring it up. We're still waiting on FEMA funds, or I don't know if it needs to be located for the disaster that happened on the Wilcox, outside of Wilcox Tunnel. They stated that the funding was approved, it was allocated. However, the damage is still there. The damage is still visible. I mean, it's kind of been piecemeal together. And, you know, not just in my neighborhood, it's parts on Missionary Ridge. It's like a lot of areas. So if you could give me an update on the FEMA funds towards the tornado damage, where we are. And because I would like, you know, not just my district to be fixed, but, you know, other areas too that was impacted from the tornado.
You mean the last tornado or?
Yeah, it's all of them. The
Well,
tornado before,
but
the
there again,
tornado,
yeah.
Easter tornado, all of them, we're still waiting on funding. And for some reason, parts of District 9 just keep getting left out. So if you could give me an updated report, because I hadn't seen anything to come by here that says, you know, a resolution to authorize acceptance of the fund due to tornadoes.
But there again, the work has to be done first. And if the work is done, and the city will request reimbursement.
Okay.
What I'm hearing is I'm not sure the work's been done.
Yeah, nothing.
So then
So-
you will not have reimbursement, and that would probably have to be addressed by another department representative.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Anything else?
Anything else?
I have one follow-up for Councilwoman Coonrod, and we can discuss further. My understanding is that the Now, I've been here 6 days, so don't hold me to it. But my understanding is that the Wilcox Tunnel damage was not covered by FEMA. So let me get more information from a couple of departments, and I will get with you on that. Thank you.
Chief, that excuse doesn't hold water. You've been here before, so.
I thought I got
Get
at
to
least
work.
10 days, 10, 11 days, maybe.
Thank you. All right, I'm seeing no other hands. Council, I received no emails this past week regarding any proposed legislation, so I'm not expecting to see any this afternoon. Council, every 4 years, the tax assessor's department does assessor property. Thank you. I got that written down and come out tax. The assessor of properties reassesses property values for all of Hamilton County, but it affects citizens here in the city of Chattanooga. And our assessor of property, Marty Haynes, is here with us today. He called and said he would be happy to come and explain a little bit about the reevaluations that did occur. And so he's going to come at this time and just say a word about the reevaluations for the city of Chattanooga. Marty Haynes.
Thank you, Chairman Henderson. Council members, thank you for allowing somebody from the county to come down and grace or be in your presence today. So thank you very much. We do work on behalf of all citizens in Chattanooga as well as Hamilton County. And Chairman Henderson is correct. We often get called, or I am often called the tax assessor, but we are involved in your property values. Taxes rest with you folks, and we'll talk about that in just a second. He's correct. 2021 is a reappraisal year for Hamilton County and 25 other counties across the state. We are a 4-year reappraisal county. That is something that is approved by the Division of Property Assessments, which is under the auspices of the Comptroller of Tennessee. The 2021 plan was approved in the spring of 2017. We're in the process right now. We have submitted and it's been approved by the state of Tennessee, the 2025 plan. So it's already in place or almost in place. I'll be in front of the county commission in the morning to present the plan to them, and they will vote on it next week. So let's talk just a few minutes about what a reappraisal is and what it is not. Sir, if you could bring up the PowerPoint presentation, we'll see if we can get this started. Now let's go to page 2. Here we go. This is the, is this on your screens in front of you? Yes, it is. I see.
Okay.
Councilwoman Coonrod has it up.
So hold on one
okay.
second. I'm wondering if our folks at home can see it because it's not on our Zoom screen. It is on our desk screen. Here we go.
We're good.
We're doing a hybrid, and I want to make sure that the folks at home or otherwise joining us on Zoom can see your presentation as well.
Very good. The more folks that are involved and get to listen, the better off we are. What a reappraisal is not a tax increase. It is a revenue neutral program. This is about property values, and that is state law. That you, the city of Chattanooga, will receive the same revenue next in the budget that starts July 1 as you did in the current budget year that you're in, exclusive of new growth. And you can see the state law that's in place right now. It's almost committed to memory, 67-5-1701, Section A, 1 through 3. So that is the state law that makes this revenue neutral. If you desire more revenue after this program is over with, that will be a decision that you'll make with the mayor's office. The certified tax rate is something that we will submit information based on property values to the comptroller's office in conjunction with the comptroller's office. They will send back to us a certified tax rate, not only for Chattanooga, but for Soddy Daisy, Signal Mountain, wherever it may be, for Hamilton County as well. The easiest way to understand this, I believe, sir, if we can play the video that is up in the, if we can play that for the folks, it's a quick 2-minute video that the comptroller's office produced. It's a little cheesy. It looks like something that would come out of Hickson, maybe.
Meet Steve. This is Steve's house, and this is Steve's property assessment notice. If you own property in Tennessee, it's the job of your county assessor to figure out how much it's worth. Depending on which county you're in, an updated value for your property is determined every 4, 5, or 6 years during a process called a reappraisal. And since property values generally go up over time, there's a good chance that your house, commercial property, or land will be appraised at a higher value. Steve's property has gone up in value, so what does this mean for his property taxes? Here's the good news. Higher values during a reappraisal do not necessarily mean higher taxes. Tennessee law requires the state work with your assessor and county mayor to adjust your property tax rate. So when appraisals go up, your tax rate goes down. It's known as the certified tax rate. The concept is simple. The new certified tax rate will generate the same amount of tax revenues for your city or county as the amount billed in the previous year. Let's say all of the properties in Steve's community increased in value by an average of 20%. Steve's house also increased 20%, but thanks to the certified tax rate, he should pay just about the same amount in property taxes he paid last year. The only way the certified tax rate can be exceeded is if Steve's county commission or city council decides to hold a public hearing and adopt a new higher rate. When you receive a new property appraisal, it helps to understand how you're protected by the certified rate. But pay attention to your local government meetings to know if leaders are thinking about exceeding it. Remember, the assessor values your property. The county commission or city council determines how much you'll pay in taxes.
Well,
Hi, Clint Coons here with Anderson.
yeah, I think we've seen enough of the video, and I'll take your objection to heart and bring it up with my state representative. Maybe you would like to do so as well. So anyway, let's talk about what we do and how we arrive at values. This is one of the main questions that we get. There are roughly 150,000 residential properties, and today we're just talking about residential properties. We won't spend time talking about commercial properties. 95% of the calls that we get in the office are from residential property owners. We do mass appraisal. We do it by neighborhood. We do not do an individual mortgage appraisal as if you're going out to get a loan for your home. Typically, those today in today's market are about $400 or $500 a piece. 150,000, you're looking at $50 or $60 million for a budget to do it that way. We do it by mass appraisal. Our budget this year is just a little over $4 million, 4.1 million to be exact. So we do it by mass, but yet when you call to ask a question about your property, we review it individually against similar homes in your neighborhood that sold in the past 4 years, 17, 18, 19, or 20. We rely most heavily on the sales from 2020 and then 2019, and we'll get to that in just a second. There have been a bunch of sales in the last 2 years. So that's what we do. When you ask questions about your value, we're looking at homes that are similar in age, size, number of bedrooms, and we do everything exterior because we are not allowed in your home unless there is an appointment made. Our residential appraisers travel in teams of 2, or they work in pairs, teams of 2. And we try not to enter your property if there is only one property owner at home. In today's world, the liability for the property owner and for county government is just too enormous. So we try to make sure there are two people at home at all times if we are asking your home. One quick thing that we learned as we prepared for the 2021 reappraisal, there were more homes sold across Hamilton County in 2020 as opposed to 2019. I think that came as a surprise within our office. There were 7,100 homes sold in 2020, just under 6,700 in 2019, for a total almost of 14,000 in 2 years, which is typically what we see in a 4-year period across Hamilton County. And that's all in the entire county. We can go to this screen, great, we're already there. In 2017, we saw a 5% increase in value in the homes that were sold that year. In 2018, we saw another 5% increase in market value from the previous year. 2019, we saw an 8% increase. And then last year, we saw an 11% increase in property values from 2020 to 2019. So it's a hot market right now. It's a hot real estate market. One of the questions has been asked repeatedly in the office when folks call, okay, we're at these super inflated values right now. What happens if the market takes a turn, let's say in 2023, late 22 or whatever? Here's the deal. A property owner has the right every year to question or appeal or ask for a market review of their value. It is on the property owner to do that. Just as the market, as we see here these last 4 years, as the market's been increasing, we can't chase those sales. That's the terminology that's used in assessor world. We can't chase the value going up. Likewise, if there's a downturn, we can't arbitrarily adjust your property down unless you call us and report to us. We know what the sales are. We know if there's going to be a downturn in the market, but you have to call and report it to us. I wish there was a different way, but that's the way state law. They don't let us chase it on the way up, and they don't let us track it on the way down unless it's in a reappraisal year. That's the year when we equalize everything to the best of our abilities. We get a lot of calls about refinance. Money's cheap right now if you're borrowing money to refinance a home. Typically, when you get a refinance, we get those folks call often about I've refinanced my home. It's less than what the value you have on it. That's typically true because most of the time this is painting with a big broad brush. You're not including land value in that structure. They are chasing a dollar. They know what the value of your home is. And it's typically at about 80% is what they're going to refinance. Now that's painting with a big broad brush, but I did want to point that out. If you could, sir, go to the certified tax rate history. I'm not sure where we've got this laid out yes. So here's and I think this is, we can send this to you electronically, but this tracks to the best of our ability the certified tax rate, which your tax rate will come down this year. Right now, it's currently at $2.27 per $100 of assessed value. When you get your assessment, you're paying taxes on 25% of the value on your residential property. It's 40% for commercial property. So you're only paying taxes on 25%. You divide that by 100, multiply your tax rate. That's about what your tax bill is for your city property. Your $2.27 will come down this year. How much will it come down? What's going to be the percentage? We have a pretty good idea right now. We're tracking the city. The county average right now is just a little over 25%. The city typically runs a little higher. It'll be somewhere around 27% is what we expect at this point in time. If you look back, 1989, and we won't go through every year, 1989 was the first year of a reappraisal. The certified tax rate for that year was $269. It was certified at $269. When you get to 93, it dropped a little bit to $262. We won't take time to go through everything, but you can see that it dropped every year except for what year? 2013. What did 2013 follow? The housing bust of 2009, 2010. It took 4 years to correct. And actually the certified tax rate went up by a penny that year, but the city council at that time opted to keep the previous rate in place. We know this year with the increase in values that the tax rate is going to come down in the city, and you'll deal with that with Mayor Kelly and budget conversations as to what you want to do with that. That is your role and not ours. If we could go to there is a slide, sir, with the city. Yes, here we go. This is just a quick snapshot of 2 years. that we looked at. A lot of numbers, but they make really easy sense. You can see the number of sales in 2019 on the top part of the display. 2,827 sales in 2019, 2,929. The median sales price in 2020 was whatever that quick math is, $27,000 higher. You can see the average sales price and go across. You can see the amount of value of, that's the appraised value of property, or what that was actually the market value, the sales price. And then we get through the other things. But if you drop down quickly and look at 2021, this is where we are already in the first quarter. We're tracking those sales now. We're not doing anything with them. We're just holding that information. Within the city limits of Chattanooga, we've had 841 sales with a median price of $217, but an average sale price, as you can see, from $255 as opposed to last year's average price of $249. So value is on the rise, continues to be on the rise, and yet the inventory continues to decrease as far as the number of homes for sale in Hamilton County. We also know, Mr. Henderson, that material is rising, prices are rising quickly. And so we may see fewer homes sold at the end of this year, but my suspicion is it's going to be at a higher value because of material costs. Whether that holds true or not, I don't know. I'm not a contractor, not a real estate agent, but you can see that we're already having an increase in value in 2021, and this will be reflected when we get to 2025. There are some counties, in particular, Shelby County, which is, as far as the number of parcels and the number of staff, about 3 times larger than what we are. They are considering a 2-year reappraisal. Are we prepared to do that in Hamilton County? Not right now, and not in 2023. It could be, maybe, possibly in 2027, but we'd have to have an increase in staff, and we'd have to have a very tight plan prepared in the spring of 2025 to be able to do that. So that's the question there. And sir, if you can bring up the last slide, and I will finish and answer any questions. If folks want to call the office for residential properties, 209-7990, 209-7990. We have folks answering the phone every day from 8 to 4:30. We are in the office until 5 o'clock, but they have to have a few minutes at the end of the day to collect all the information and all the calls and emails that have come in. To date, we've had, Chris, about 10,000 phone calls, including emails as well, across the county. Our last mailing, Mr. Smith, for Hickson is in the mail tonight. So yours will be delivered in the next day or two, or I can bring it to you personally, whatever would be appropriate. So, and I don't mean to make light of it. We do want to hear from folks, and we have talked to a lot of folks, spent Friday night with the folks, with Councilman Ledford and Commissioner Smedley. Folks had tornado damage. We've worked with them and to make sure we've got their values right. And if there is something that is incorrect about your value, square footage or whatever, please give us a call. You see the phone number and the email that you can use to contact us. One thing that I did not put on the slide, there is a sales tool that we have on our website, sales.hamiltontn.gov. If you go to that link, put your address in, it will show the sales from 2020 of the homes that were nearest to you in size, age, and description. Heck, it'll show any sale near your home. We added that feature last summer and made it public January 1st. So that tool is available to the public. It's been very helpful for folks when they take a look at it. County Board of Equalization, if they call our office and we can't agree at a lower value that the property owner is requesting, they have the right to go to the County Board of Equalization. You actually appoint 2 members to that board. The County Commission appoints 3 members. They meet each year in June. That's why it's important for folks to understand that they have the right. It's not just the opportunity, it's the right to appeal their value every year. And that's an independent citizen board, and whatever they say the value is, that's what it is. And unless we want to contest it at a higher level, and we haven't done that yet. So anyway, don't intend to while I'm assessor. I'll be quiet and answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. We do have a couple. Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Haynes, thanks for coming out to the East Brainerd area and sharing this information in quite detail. We met for, I feel like, an hour and a half. We had a lot of questions and you answered a lot of questions. We presented a lot of materials. So One of the takeaways from that meeting was, I think, a better understanding at how the assessment process works, but also to get the message out. And I've also crafted some graphics that are gone out on social media explaining if you were affected by the tornado, that the assessor's office wants to hear from you. And
Correct.
especially if you're still working through some of the repairs, you want to hear from them, not just if you think about it or you disagree, you'd like to hear from them.
Yes, sir.
And I want to make sure that message is sent out very strong to folks that were affected by the tornadoes in East Brainerd. And also, thank you. The cutoff, I believe, is June 10th.
June 10th is it. We can actually talk to you after June 10th, but you can't schedule an appointment with or a hearing with the County Board of Equalization. We can still talk to you after June 10th. And if we agree on a value, we can submit it. But if we disagree on the value, yeah, June 10th is your, I think that's a Friday, Thursday or Friday at 4:00. Yes, sir.
And one of the other items, real quick, Mr. Chair, is we talked about when you're cruising through social media where all the answers seem to lie, people asking, well, my neighbor's house has a pool, or my neighbor's house has a renovated kitchen. And, I don't want my assessment to be based on their pool and their new kitchen. And would you explain a little bit further about how you don't use that criteria to do your assessment?
The way we do use it is in the overall sale, because we don't go inside your home unless you ask us in, and you really don't want us in, because if we don't know that basement is finished and we walk in and the basement is finished, now we know it and we have to add it. So that's another reason you don't necessarily want us in your home. But what we do is we don't just take one sale, we take the entire neighborhood basically. And in layman's terms, we take the entire square footage for the entire neighborhood, all the sales, kind of divide it. And that gives you pretty much a square foot price for the neighborhood. And we throw out the outliers on the top end and on the bottom end. So we get a mix in the middle is where we are.
Very good. Again, thank you for coming to East Brainerd and talking to folks who've been affected by the tornado, and for opening your doors and your phone lines to anybody in the East Brainerd area that has been affected by the tornado. I really appreciate you coming out and spending time with us on a Friday evening, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Before I go to the next council person, Mr. IT, can you stop sharing the screen, put our folks back up? Thank you. Councilman Hester.
First, let me thank you for coming.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And you mentioned that from 2019 to 2020, there was a great influx of houses built in Hamilton County. What do you attribute to that?
Yeah, I may have misspoke if I said built. There were a number of homes sold. Those could have been new, but most likely were existing homes in Hamilton County, and that's countywide, 7,100 and some odd, and it was 6,700. So if I may have misspoke, I apologize for that. But those were existing and new homes both.
What attribute to the increase in sales? In your
Typically, what we have seen in neighborhoods where the values were, and I'll again paint with a broad brush, if they were anywhere from 100,000 to 250,000, a lot of those homes were sold. I would dare say the majority of homes sold out of that 7,000 were on that end, as opposed to the higher end homes, higher value homes. We saw less sales in that market. It's not that there weren't sold, but it just wasn't as many. Folks are looking. Property ownership is still the greatest way for most Americans to build wealth in this country, and folks are looking to buy property. And there were some areas of the city that you could find, I don't want to say a bargain, but you could find property values that a lot of folks could afford.
So in that time frame, 2019, 2020, was there influx of out-of-state folks buying houses from other states?
I would say yes. We don't track where they come from.
Okay.
We just track the sales. And if you talk to any of our appraisers, they don't know street addresses. They know map group and parcel number, because that's where the house sits, not necessarily at an address. So I can't answer your question. I'm sure the Greater Chattanooga Area Realtors Council could give you a better indication of where the ownership, where they're coming from, the buyers.
Fair enough. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Haynes, for coming and talking with us. two questions that I have a feeling I'll be asked about, given my district. School zone plays a big part in the sales value of a home. And I wondered if that was one of the things that you all take into account.
We know where the school zones are. Yes, ma'am. And it has been evident over the last 4.5 years since I've been assessor that obviously the Normal Park area is a school zone that attracts folks. That's not always the case, but it does play a factor in the reason that folks purchase in a specific area. Yes, ma'am. New schools.
So it's likely, I mean, I put in an address and, it's one of those where the zone seems to have been cut with a surgical knife. And so right across the street, your home may be worth significantly less because you're not in the zone. So that would be someone who I would advise to reach out to you if they
Sure,
felt like it was.
absolutely. Be happy
Okay,
to talk to them.
The other question, you mentioned that District 3's assessments are going to be going out today. You saw me in the hall and it sounds like North Chattanooga's are coming out soon.
We don't follow. Yes, we divide the county into 5 areas, and North Chattanooga, Red Bank is in this area that's in the next mailing, White Oak, Hickson, and all the way up to about Thrasher Pike.
And when did the mailings begin?
A month ago.
And everybody only has until June 10th to get back to you?
Yes.
Does that change every 4 years? Who gets theirs sent first, or does?
No, it could. I don't remember who we sent first, which area we sent first last time. We specifically sent the tornado area this time because we expected to get phone calls because we are limited to the exterior of viewing a property for a visual inspection. We're not inside. We knew there were going to be some homes in the tornado area, affected area that may appear on the outside to be fine, but on the inside they are not.
So we're going to have homeowners in my district and in Councilman Smith's district and Henderson's district that will have 4 to 6 weeks to get back to you. But we've had other homeowners who've had a matter of
yes,
2.5 months to be able to consider this.
You're right. I'm not going to disagree with you. That's exactly right. Typically what we see after the notices hit the mailbox for the first 3 or 4 days, everybody in the office is on the phone. After the first 3 or 4 days, it slows down considerably. We get emails. We'll have plenty of time to work. We're still working on Saturdays. We're just not answering the phone on Saturdays. We're doing all of our market reviews or informal reviews as it would be on Saturdays. That's why we set that aside. We have ample time to get this finished. I promise you. We have folks in this office who've been doing this for a long time.
I worry less about your office and more about the homeowners who this wasn't their month, and it sat on their pile of mail. But I think that's unfortunate that there's such a lag for my district.
We only have 10 folks to answer the phone at this time. Well, 12 technically. It's simply just a matter of customer service. The worst thing that can happen, in my opinion, and it's my choice and my decision, is you get a piece of mail like this, you call and get a busy signal. That's the worst thing in the world. Davidson County is sending out whatever number they have, 300,000 all at one time. It's not possible to answer 300. If they get 10%, which is what we're experiencing, it's just not possible. And I don't believe that's good customer service. No offense to my friends in Davidson County, but they have a larger staff than we do. We have a limited staff. We do the very best we can.
Would you be able to offer a rolling deadline based on when the letter was mailed?
No, we cannot. No.
That's illegal.
State law is June 1st. County board goes into session every year, June 1st. That's state law.
So I thought you said June 10th was our date.
June 10th is the last date they go into session. June 10th is the last day to schedule an appointment. We're already receiving folks that are requesting an appointment. And they will meet as long as necessary to accommodate the public. There's no deadline as to how long they can meet. It's just they have to start on June 1st.
So anyone can call you any time of the year. June 10th really does not matter to a homeowner?
June 10th is the deadline to schedule with the County Board of Equalization to set a hearing. I mean, we only have 5 members. It's only, and they don't meet all day, every day. It is I mean, if you have folks that want to serve, feel free to nominate them and approve them. We'll take them. I mean, we would be welcome to have those folks. But June 10th, at some point you have to cut it off. You got to remember all the commercial properties in town will be flooded on June 10th with commercial properties that are appealing their values. Most of the folks that go to the County Board of Equalization are residential property owners most of the time. 4 years ago, we had 175 people that asked for hearings. We expect it will be more this time.
Okay, thank you.
You good, Councilwoman? Sort of, kind of. Okay. Mr. Haynes, I don't see any more hands, sir.
Okay, thank you
would
very
you like
much.
to-
If you have questions, feel free to give me a call or shoot me an email. I think most of you have got my mobile number or email, and I'll be happy to talk to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we do have one committee that we will be going into today, and that will be Legislative Committee. That will be chaired by Vice Chair Ken Smith. At this time, I'll turn the chair over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We will call to order the Legislative Committee. To have a motion on the minutes.
Move to approve.
Move to approve. No objections. They will stand as recorded. Thank you. We have actually, I think there's only 2 items that are listed in everybody's packet, but we do have 3 I would like to cover this afternoon. The first item that we have in the packet is the Juneteenth ordinance. This is something we discussed last week and many weeks before that. I am happy to take any questions at this time about that legislation. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to read it. I know most of the council that have reviewed it over the last few months have had a chance. I haven't received any additional questions over this. This is something that has been sponsored by Councilwoman Coonrod. I'm not sure if she's received any questions. Do you have any further comments, Councilwoman, you'd like to give at this time? Thank you, Councilwoman. Mr. Chair, do you see any hands?
I can't raise mine, but I do have one.
Please, sir.
Hey, Chief, can you come down for just a minute? We are at this point talking about adding an additional paid holiday. One of the things that I know all of us probably campaigned on, and I know that Mayor Kelly campaigned on, is making sure that we implement our pay structure for sworn personnel, particularly, but also addressing pay increases for non-sworn personnel as well. Do you feel confident that we can add an additional paid holiday without it jeopardizing any of the pay structure that we're looking at implementing?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Love those answers, Brent. Keep them coming. Any other hands, sir?
I'm not seeing any other hands at this time.
All right, at this time, we have no further questions. I would like a consensus that we are able to move this item to our 2-week agenda. Are there any objections?
No.
Seeing none, thank you. Mr. Attorney, will you please be sure that this item does make it on our 2-week agenda and that the sponsor is properly listed? Thank you, sir. Next item that we have in committee, Parks Master Plan Resolution. And I believe we've got somebody to address that for us here this afternoon. Where'd he go? Is he sitting over there? There he is. Hey, Travis.
Actually, there are people a lot smarter than me. So Koshua is on virtual,
Okay.
I believe, and she was gonna provide some background, and then our consultants that we went through the RFP process for and selected for you guys, Design Workshop is on there to give a presentation. So I'm just a conduit. Thanks.
Madam Clerk.
Thanks, Travis. Thank you, Council. This project has been in the works for several years now, and it's good to see it moving forward. Thank you, Councilwoman Coonrod, for reintroducing this motion. Our previous Parks Master Plan was Recreate 2008, which actually was drafted in the late 90s. So we essentially don't have a strategic planning document to guide our current park investments. That's why this is so crucial that we do. In the last 5 years, we've invested over $18 million in our parks without a way to prioritize that, to make sure that there's equity across our system. We went through the BFO process and were funded $200,000 in FY19, and we supplemented that with $20,000 from our 10-minute walk grant. And the motion that was tabled was to approve the contract with Design Workshop. And as Travis mentioned, they were selected after a very rigorous process. And I've invited them to present today as well to tell you more about what they do and what they propose to do for our Parks and Greenways Master Plan. So it's Emily McCoy and Kurt Koblerson, Lindsay Nolan that'll be presenting.
How are you? I am Kurt Culbertson. I'm the chairman of Design Workshop. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir, we can.
Coach, I asked that I share with you a brief presentation. I have about 20 slides. At my pace, it takes about 10 minutes, but I'll just give you an overview of what we are proposing to suggest, but complete. But Design Workshop is a 50-year-old landscape architecture land planning firm. We're worked throughout North America, all 50 states, on parks, recreation, and open space master plans. We are working now in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and Spokane and Salt Lake, and completing the greenways and trails plan for Loudoun County, Virginia. The team that we have assembled are the 4 folks across the top from our firm, Design Workshop, as well as ETM Associates that deals with parks and operation, maintenance and financing. The Hummingbird firm out of Atlanta that would help with community engagement. And then folks you probably know from there in Chattanooga, Matt Whitaker and Justin Tierson, who will be boots on the ground and helping us with this effort. Our strategic approach to park planning is really to be broad-minded about it. I know I've listened to your agenda today. Obviously, finances are a concern. We think you get the most bang for your buck, if you will, when you use parks and open space to address a number of issues, questions of flooding and resiliency, mobility, how do you get people around the city, be responsive to community needs and cultural situations. We are fierce believers in a citizen-driven process, and we believe that parks can play an economic development role, can be integrated with your tourism strategy. There was mention today about the open space partnership. So how do you leverage dollars by partnerships with others? How do you use parks to help shape the city? And then really, how do we make sure we do all of this in a financial context? We believe that there are great opportunities for parks and trails and open space to provide connectivity, to perhaps reduce demand on for automobiles and traffic in the city, and really create new kinds of experiences for your residents as part of the process of mobility. And we begin the process by understanding development patterns. Where are higher density developments? Where are more lower density rural developments? Obviously, the higher density of development, the more people we get in need of park and open space in a given area. And oftentimes folks living at higher densities, they don't have a backyard. They may not have access to recreational facilities. And so making sure we tailor park and recreation facilities to locations and populations are an important part of the process. Parks and open space can really built around an understanding of the natural assets and framework of the city, be it steep slopes or floodplain areas, because oftentimes floodplains and steeper slopes that are difficult to develop can provide very valuable recreational opportunities. And then a lot of conversation on your agenda today about the importance of COVID, dealing with COVID, the expense, the challenges. These are some data from Hamilton County. You can see the decline in visitation to retail and recreation, even groceries, stores and pharmacies, but a 56% increase in visitation to parks in the county. And so the ability for people to have open spaces, fresh air and so forth is really a fundamental health consideration for all of your residents. The planning process would look at health needs. This is an increasingly an important trend in park and recreational planning. Where do you have facilities? Where are the gaps in facilities and services? And then oftentimes you may have observed in your experiences, people tend to map, sometimes with a simple circle, the distance from walking distance to parks. And this is an example in Chattanooga, from Trust for Public Land based data that looks at where gaps in park coverage. 36%, 37% of your residents are within walking distance of a park now, but there are 116,000 that are beyond that 10-minute walk, which is a pretty typical norm. One of the things that we are finding around North America is a greater and greater emphasis on equity. And by that, I mean not everything's the same for everybody, but that all of your citizens have fair access, reasonable access to parks and open space. In Loudoun County, Virginia, where we're working now, they've developed a system, or we've developed a system with them to look at different characteristics of the population, their age, their levels of disability and so forth, and to look at economic conditions. If I'm not a higher income resident, I probably don't belong to a country club or have access to a pay for use recreation center and so forth. So where are the populations that are in greatest need of these kinds of facilities? And oftentimes the challenge with using a simple radius to cover the city to understand where you need parks is it doesn't really understand your way of getting to the park. Sometimes there's a major highway, an interstate in the way between your home and a park. Sometimes there's a railroad track or a high-speed roadway and so forth. And so we also want to look at safe routes to parks, much like you might look at safe routes to schools, to understand how people can get to parks. This idea of leveraging multi-use of park space is also to consider how floods can contribute to stormwater management, reduce cost on the city stormwater infrastructure through green infrastructure techniques and so forth. And then particularly in this time of the pandemic, to understand how we gain citizen input during, as we say, the time of COVID-19. We would begin by understanding that the demographics of your community, the population density, as I said, where growth is occurring, where diversity may exist, developing with you a stakeholder engagement plan, and then really having a range of outreach. And we use, I think, some very sophisticated digital technological tools to reach people, particularly during the time of the pandemic. And as you can see in some of these photos, some very hands-on techniques where we're sitting down neighbor to neighbor. And as we come out of the pandemic, we certainly hope we'll be able to have more and more of those kinds of experiences. This is a master plan for a park in Lafayette, Louisiana. You can see 7,400 participants participating in this one particular park design. And then we believe in a transparent process. Not only have we suggested that we have a statistically valid survey to gain people's views on the park system of Chattanooga, but we also use keypad polling and other techniques that provide data that support the recommendation. Candidly, we find that very valuable for elected and appointed officials to feel like they have data to know that's backing up the recommendations of the plan. The plan is not just a physical plan. It's going to look at the management and operations of your park department to understand the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Some of the kinds of things that we would do would benchmark Chattanooga against peer communities and understand, be it staffing ratios or per capita capital improvements expenditures or maintenance dollars and so forth. How do you compare to your peer cities? Are the staffing requirements reasonable and appropriate? Are there ways to gain more efficient use of available staff as we've done here in Greensboro? Are there ways to gain more use out of existing facilities? Maybe that involves going to artificial turf on certain sports fields to get more hours of use out of existing capital investments. And then how do we diversify funding resources? We know that no park department today operates strictly on general fund revenues. There's a big need for earned income, revenue generating opportunities within the park. There's a big need for philanthropy, which is an important part of the considerations, and oftentimes joint park development with major real estate projects is another way that parks get funded. And then we'll be looking at maintenance requirements and maintenance costs to understand the cost side of the park operations requirement as well. And the long-term goal, we've been reviewing your last capital improvements program around parks, is to understand what does this vision that's represented by the strategic plan, what's it going to cost? How does that balance with available funding? What is the community's relative priorities? And then what are the action items needed to implement the plan? And so with that, I'll open it up for questions. We've laid out, not quite sure when we might be able to start. With your approval, a planning process that generally takes us 10 to 12 months to go through with your community and develop this master plan. And with that, I'll open it up for questions.
All right. Thank you, sir. Councilman Ledford.
Chair. Hey, Kurt, quick question.
Sure.
We have a pretty good relationship with the Trust for Public Land. I was talking to Mr. Johnson a couple of weeks ago, and Ms. Park and I've also had conversations not too long ago here at council. How well do they become part of the plan in your master plan? And what is the relationship with the Trust for Public Land? Because it sounds like some of this may cross over in the connectivity in the paths in particular. And I'm just wondering, I mean, obviously you know who they are and
Oh, yeah.
how become part of that schedule.
Sure. Well, to let you know, we've worked with the Trust for Public Land many times. We've actually designed parks for the Trust for Public Land as part of their Parks for People program. So we know them well, have a lot of respect for the organization. A lot of the base environmental inventory and so forth that they've done, we would certainly plug them into the process. To be candid, we reached out to them early on when we were putting our proposal together. I think they felt the time it was best for them to be independent of this process. So we respected that, but we would see them as an integral part of the process, build upon the base data they have already gathered. I would say supplement it. I think the level of analysis that they typically go go to in their parks need assessment. I think we would probably add another level of detail to that. And then we would also look to them for any base information they have about park demand. One of the things you typically try to do in a master plan is to do what we would call a level of service analysis, which is what are your targets in terms of sports field per thousand population, or basketball courts, or playgrounds, and so forth and so on. So any base data that they can have that would supplement that. I know there have been a number of webinars that they have helped produce in the city. So I think they've built a good database of outreach. So
And I just wanted to interject that, TPL is one of our most valued partners. We have the conservation services agreement with them. So we work with them on a lot of projects, and they would actually be part of a steering committee for this master plan that would pull in most of our partners. So they would be like technical advisors. So it would include TPL, but also design workshop. The Chattanooga Design Studio.
Yeah.
And so we have a lot of partners, but TPL is probably the one that we work with most extensively. So they would be a part of this process.
That's good to hear. And thank you for that, Ms. Cook. One last question, Mr. Chair, if I can. Kurt, can you talk a little bit about how you choose in the design phase whether something's going to be passive or active? In East Brainerd, we have the Jack Benson Heritage Park, and it's our only park, note you, and it is passive in nature, and it's very important to our community. But we've had folks ask for more active activities, but the park by design in the beginning was designed to be more of a passive use. Can you describe a little bit the process that you'll go through?
Sure. Well, it's multidimensional. One is to understand the land itself. Sometimes land ends up being a passive park because it's got a creek through it, or it's got steep topography, and building a ball field on steep land is a difficult thing to do. I have actually driven the city, but your particular park doesn't pop up in my head. But the point being is the attributes of the land sometimes dictate that. The second thing is to understand the distribution of various recreational facilities around the city. That's going to identify some gaps, not just in terms of where parks are, but also in terms of where, particular facilities are. You may say, wow, from my neighborhood, it's a 20-minute drive to do X activity, right? And so that kind of gap analysis is going to tell us what's missing from different parts of the city, right? And then the third one is going to be what are the residents of the community desire, right? And we generally have to triangulate those three things with a budget to determine the appropriate use of a particular piece of parkland, right?
Very good. I appreciate the answers to those
Yeah.
questions.
Good, sir. Councilwoman Burrs?
Nope.
So, yeah, great question. Thank you. The reason that it was tabled is we brought it to you in March of 2020, right when the global pandemic was hitting our forefronts. And so the idea of spending money, even allocated money from 2019 was just not in the best interest of the city and this council. And so we've been patiently waiting. The funding has been approved from the past. We've also been working through different grant programs, which is what pushed us to that March timeframe. And then of course the RFP process. So once we got through that, we brought it to you guys, and then it was tabled for that reason. And so we're hoping to untable it and approve Design Workshop, who is our vendor for that. So we've already allocated the funding. You had already approved the funding previously. And then the next step in that whole process is going and finding the right consultant. So we did that process after some grant programs that we had gone through. So you're approving design workshop to do the plan in conjunction or for the city. I think we had budgeted $200,000 for the plan, and then we had $20,000 from one of our grant programs. So it's all, and we had gotten approval through that grant to use that. So the total cost, I believe, is just under 220,000. And we can double check that just to make sure. And Akoshawa might know. She's
No, yeah, I couldn't hear her questions, but yes, we have the 200,000 that was funded, and then we're supplementing it with the 20,000 from our 10-minute walk grant. And so the total budget cost is 220,000.
And really it's just, so when we come back to you with this, it's really just your chance to check on whether or not we went through the proper purchasing guideline protocols in searching and evaluating the RFP, and that they are within the budget that was set by City Council during our initial request in the past, so which we've done. Correct. 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 No, there shouldn't be. Everything should be incorporated into that cost. Yes. Yes.
Good, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Hill, I saw your hand. Are you good?
The most important, and I appreciated what Councilman Ledford elevated with regard to Trust for Public Land. They have been doing some really innovative community outreach, and gotten genuine feedback, not just the typical, hey, we showed up at this festival and now they asked us something, but genuinely the people that live across the street, what they're looking for and how they'll use a park. And we were talking earlier about this being the age of one Chattanooga. And I hope that this process will really lean into the spirit of that, and be genuinely doing the heavy lifting to have the conversations that are not the ones that are the low hanging fruit, but are a little bit harder to get, but would have a positive impact on people's quality of life in our city.
Yes, that's one of our primary goals with this master plan, is to have a focus on equity, as Kurt mentioned. But we know that in the past we have fallen short with equally addressing all the needs of Chattanooga's residents. So we want to, use some more creative strategies to reach our harder to reach communities and make sure that everybody, gets an equal stake in this process.
Councilman Byrd.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Cook, do we have any updates on Lynbrook Park?
Well, yes, lots of them. Limber Park is going to go into construction hopefully this fall. I just had a call right before this. National Recreation and Parks Association selected Lynbrook Park for its community build project this year. So they're going to be donating some equipment. So we were just talking about what the, potential donors such as Playcore and Burke that they would like to see in this park. So I can get with you offline because there's a lot happening with Lynbrook Park. So
All right. Thank you so much, Ms. Cook.
Councilwoman Burrs.
I would say that we are leveraging our talents the best we can. We're limited on staff. We have one parks planner, and that's a Koshua. I have a degree in urban and regional planning by trade, and so I happen to be the director of open spaces and can participate with that. But outside of me, it's a Koshua trying to capture the entire community's input and put together a plan, and still implementing Lindbergh Park, the skate park, all these other different park projects in the community on top of the open spaces responsibility. So it's probably just staffing. And then RPA is also doing the entire county's district plans, which with limited staff. So it would take us a really, really long time. I mean, we could probably do it, but it wouldn't get us to a place that we would expect to get to in any reasonable amount of time. It is, yeah. Part of one of the things that Akoshua wrote in the program was specifically geared to outreach, and she may want to share a couple of thoughts on that. But it was a huge deciding factor in who we evaluated and hired for this process. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, ma'am. Councilman Ledford.
Mr. Chair, I would like to clarification on tonight procedural. In order to bring this up, we'll have to bring it back from the table. At what point in the meeting would you like that? In other business?
I think that'd be the appropriate place to
Okay.
bring that up.
Thank you, sir. I'm assuming we'll see a motion from Councilwoman Coonrod.
Yes, sir. Where are we at? Councilwoman Hill.
Councilwoman Burrs made a really interesting point about the fact that she feels like people in her, she often will hear that people in her district have not been approached about something like this. And so I would just like to add that when we talk about hard to reach groups, there are lots of hard to reach groups. I mean, so many of us have been knocking doors, and I'm sure we've all been in neighborhoods that nobody talks to those neighborhoods on a regular basis. And they're right along the border of Red Bank, and they're right along Gad. I mean, they're all over our city, people who are not tuned in to what's happening downtown. And so that elevates the difficulty of the task ahead of us. But I appreciate that this group would be leading that work to help us do the best we can. Thanks.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Coonrod.
Thank you, Chair. I just add value to the conversation that it isn't just about downtown, it's about everybody district. I mean, we saw the map, what the need is, and it was across the entire Chattanooga. I'm a firm believer that every community needs to have a park, an active park, and not just what we, for my area, is just really labeled as the YFD sites as the parks for my area. We've got Tatum Park that's in Highland Park, or just parcels that's outside of the tunnel. And you're right, other areas do. And when we think about the community engagement, he used those as just examples, but we play a role in that too. And getting that information out to our constituents, if it's through, the newsletters, blogs, social media, however we can partner with them to get, because they're not gonna reach everybody. We all knocked on doors and we didn't reach everybody. So yeah, however we can, get the information out, hey, I most definitely want to play a role in it.
Thank you. Yeah, it seems like a real blessing in disguise that it got pushed to this point, and now we just got through all this political campaigning, and everybody's been in touch with everybody, and we have different and updated ways of getting in touch with everyone and bringing them to the table. And so we will be relying on you guys to help us reach those people. And I would just ask that you help participate in the whole process.
We also just posted,
question, Travis. Oh, excuse me, who's?
Oh, I was just going to mention, we just hosted a park exchange workshop with City Parks Alliance that was focused on public engagement. And so we pulled together a lot of different partners agencies along with the funders from Benwood and Lyndhurst to kind of come up with strategies of how we can improve our public engagement. And like one of the things that they mentioned that I thought was really significant was not to assume that there aren't informal networks that already exist in some of our communities. It's our job to go out and find these networks. So that's something that we're committed to with this process, is to do a better job of reaching people who haven't been contacted, because that's on us, not on those residents.
All right, thank you. Travis, Councilman Ledford asked the question I was going to get to here at the end of this as far as timing. And we talked about tonight, taking it off the table. Is that the timing you're looking for? And is the resolution that was tabled, is that this in the same format that you wish to see again?
Yes and yes. The soonest we're ready to work with Design Workshop as soon as the council is ready to approve that. And we would ask that as soon as that's done, then we go through the contracting phase. So that
Sure.
whatever time that takes, and then we'll have a plan in place and be happy to share that with you as far as projected timeline of, I think Kurt was saying 10 to 12 months once contracting is started. So.
Okay, great. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. All right, seeing no further questions, we're going to move on to our next item. Madam Clerk, you can release our guests. Thank you, Travis.
Thank you.
The item that is not on our printed sheet has to do with revisions to the egg. And this is something that came up that the administration had reached out to myself and Chairman Henderson about and wanted an opportunity to discuss it with the council. Chief, do you want to come and give us a brief real quick on what this is and see the council's feel for getting it on the agenda in a couple of weeks to address?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. And Chief Roddy's here too and can speak to this if necessary. Currently, the Employee Information Guide has a provision for rehires and lists a reinstatement period of 6 months. So if a city employee leaves, comes back within 6 months, they can be reinstated under the provisions of the EIG. We have run into some issues, particularly with sworn officers that have left and come back, but maybe came back in 7 months or 8 months or 9 months. And we would like to be able to reinstate these sworn officers or any city employee for that matter, that leaves and comes back within that period of time, to make sure that we have a good hold on being able to bring people back that we've spent a lot of dollars on with training. For example, police officers who we train, who leave for whatever reason and decide to come back within a reasonable period of time. We would like to be able to expand that window from 6 months to 11 months and 29 days. So essentially, as long as they come back within a year, they can be reinstated. And that's what we are requesting the council to change, is simply change the 6 months to 11 months and 29 days. That way we can reinstate, especially sworn officers that decide to leave and come back to the city within that year timeframe.
Brent, can you explain the difference between reinstate and rehire, just to make it clear as to why we'd want to go that route?
Yeah, so if we use an example of a police officer that's at a certain rank and a certain pay, we want, if that officer leaves and comes back within a year, we would like for that officer to be able to come back and be reinstated at that same pay and that same rank. And then also they get reinstated into the pension plan, and the pension plan has all rules set aside for how reinstatements work, the general plan and the fire and police pension plan. I have spoken to the administrators of both. I spoke to Katrina Abbott at the Fire and Police Pension Plan, as well as Daisy Madison about the general plan. And the timing, whether it's 6 months or 11 months, has no impact on how reinstatements will be handled in the pension. They're handled a certain way right now. We're not requesting to change any of that. We're just requesting to change the amount of time that we allow someone to come back to the city. If they leave and come back in 2 years, then they just have to go through a normal rehire process. And I believe if it's a police officer, they would have to go back through academy, right? unless they're post certified. So it's a difference of bringing someone in just like they're a brand new employee and putting them back where they were when they left.
Thank you, sir. Do we have lights? Councilman Ledford?
My question, thank you, Mr. Chair, is for Chief Roddy. In the 11 months and 29 days, I have no objection to that. For an officer, is there any type of training or something that might come up within that year that you normally do that you see as would give us any pause in the reinstatement?
No, sir. What we would do is what we currently do with the 6-month requirement, just extending it out to 11 months and 29 days. Even if that employee is reinstated, we still have to make sure that they have a current peace officer standards and training or a post certification that has not lapsed. But we also require them to go through an abridged field training officer program. So they would sit with an FTO. That FTO would have a checkoff sheet to make sure that if there's any change in policies or laws or operational components of the police department, that individual receives hands-on training from an FTO and then is signed off before they're released to solo patrol.
That's exactly what I was hoping to hear. Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Any further questions for either chief?
One other thing I'll point out is that we originally thought about maybe limiting this to just sworn personnel, but we do have the same issue with equipment operators, for example. I mean, we may have an equipment operator that has left and wants to come back in public works, and those are hard to find right now. So we want to make sure that we are able to bring people back on board as long as they've only been gone for less than 1 year. So this would apply to all city employees, and it would just be a change from 6 months to 11 months, 29 days.
Councilwoman Coonrod. Great. Councilman Byrd?
Thank you. Would this be subject to a background check as well?
Yeah, they would have to go through the same onboarding process that is in place now.
All right, thank you.
All right, I see no further questions. Again, by consensus, I would like to know if the council has any opposition for this item being placed on the 2-week agenda. All right, seeing no opposition, Mr. Attorney, will you make sure that is on for 2 weeks? May the 11th. Yes, sir. Is that good, Chief?
Thank you.
All right, thank you both. All right, I have nothing further on my agenda for the Legislative Committee. Is there anything further from this body? Oh, Councilwoman Coonrod, do I see your light, ma'am?
Campaign on, increasing wages and so on and so forth. And a lot of us been championing that same fight for ages. But we take a responsibility in that too, because we failed to implement the plan that we paid for, that study. We decided not to implement it. So I don't think that it should just solely fall on our mayor, because we could have implemented it. We have the authority to do that. So I think as a council, we have to assume some responsibility in that. And I've asked several times if it can be placed on our agenda and legislative committee, or however we're going to do it, to talk about that study and what it looks like for us it to be implemented, and also to discuss the pay of our sworn officers. And just as they stated, they're going to get them, 11/29, a grace period, and know if they want to come back, but that's still not addressing why they're leaving. It's still not addressing why they're leaving. And so I would like for that to be.
Council, and Mr. Chair, I think I'd have to defer to you to know where in committee that needs to go. I don't know that that's actually legislative due to the budgetary aspect of that. Usually when we deal with pay increases in that nature, it's in the Budget and Finance Committee. So I'll have to defer to you, sir, how you want to handle that.
And that is something that would come through the Budget and Finance Committee, since it has to do with budgetary items.
Okay.
So Councilwoman Burrs is. Well, I think what Councilwoman Coonrod is asking for is sort of a brief on the pay study. Is that correct? I mean,
well,
on what that looked like. And are you talking about sworn personnel or sworn and non-sworn?
It was for both, but I want to just back it back a little bit, Chair. I paused because I wanted you all to finish the conversation. And because I'm sure that it was important, so I wanted you to finish that.
Was
So I
actually
can continue.
discussing where that would fall. So go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, so, and I'm gonna resume where I was at. So yes, Councilwoman, I would like for us to discuss it. Implementing the pay study that we all were presented with. And, also to discuss increasing the pay of our sworn personnel, because I'm not sure, as I could remember, the study, it didn't include our sworn personnel. I believe it would be helpful because we have 3 new council members.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, we'd be happy to come bring that back and review it. Yeah, of course. Absolutely. Yeah. And, we were looking at that and we're happy to bring that back and review it for council. Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, I see no further hands are there. Oh, wait a minute. Councilwoman Coonrod, you put your hand back up, ma'am.
The chief of police left, but, had some questions about the license plate readers. If we could, Councilman Byrd, if you don't mind, if we can place it in committee to discuss our police surveillance technology and just have an update on, the license plate readers, where are they, is it targeted just for the police officers to be having them in certain communities? Is it across the city of Chattanooga? What's the benefits and risk of it? Just several how are we sharing the data? Who are we sharing it with? And then also, after researching it extensively, the state law said that we have to, get rid of this information within 3 months. But according to, the paperwork that was submitted for the grant, it said that we will hold on to it for a year or more. And so are we out of compliance by doing that? We need to get rid of it in 3 months, as it says. So if we could have a committee meeting about that, please.
You good, Councilwoman? Okay.
And, oh, go ahead.
That'd be fine. It's not a legislative committee matter, but we will deal with that. Are there any further issues for the legislative committee today? Seeing none, we are adjourned till 6.